Ma'alole day, aloha, talofa, everyone. I hope you guys are having a fabulous day or evening, depending which part of the world you're viewing the Polynesianized podcast in this live digital kava session that we're having here. I'm Mr. Aotearoa, and Tua um, we are here to have another discussion and talk stories. But I'm doing very well. It's been a minute. We've been kind of
hmm
busy, kind of going around the world, but I'm doing well. Tua, how's everything going on your side of the world?
Yes, doing well. It's been a while. We've been Lone Rangering. Last week we did not have a live digital kava session because Mr. Aotearoa was still working his way back to the land of the
Mm,
long white cloud. I had
mm,
left and went to China for work, so we were both out of pocket for our live digital kava sessions. But the good news is we're back. We're getting back into the swing of things. So it's good and excited to continue our kava sessions and talanoa sessions here on the Polynesianized
yes,
podcast.
yes,
Loving the
yes.
beard, Mr. Aotearoa. I think it looks good. But you said
Yeah.
you're gonna put it to rest tomorrow,
Nope. Put it to rest on Sunday. I
Sunday.
tend to shave on Sunday, but while Tua, you know how long you were covering and doing the solo live digital kava sessions for the pretty much the whole month. That's how long my beard's been going because I've
It
been
looks
kind of
good. I
traveling
like it.
around. So usually when I go to church, usually I do get a good shave on, so I'll shave it off and go back. And plus, the wife tends to like it a little clean shave. She tends not to like the scruffiness of the beard. So I'm holding on for a little bit, but yeah, everything's going well, and I can't complain. Like what you said, though, I'm excited just to be back because I've been gone for a minute. But
Why
yeah,
don't you
man, I'm ready.
update the listeners and the viewers on your journeys? Because like you said, you've been gone for over a month or just under a month.
Yeah, just about a month, pretty much the entire month of September. Gone to Australia. I also went down to Nevada, Las Vegas, visited you guys, Tua, also
hmm
Utah, with a lot of the siblings there. Also went to New York, did Times Square, New York City. I'm glad I was able to go there before. Looks like New York City is gonna elect a communist mayor, so I'm glad I got to go there before maybe New York will turn for the worse. But awesome experience, and also did the tour of upstate New York in Palmyra Village. They still call them Village, kind of where the LDS faith kind of started up with Joseph Smith. So that was an awesome experience. Also drove down to Ohio through Pennsylvania. So also went to new states that I've never been to see where the first LDS temple being built. So that was awesome experience. And also went down to the nation capital of DC. Me, my wife, and my in-laws, we all went down there. We did all this trip together. DC was awesome. Got to view the White House and some of the awesome monuments there in DC. Also went to a new state in Virginia. Never been there, so that was an awesome experience. And finish off the trip to Hawaii. Visit visit our parents there, and also my wife's family had a reunion, so that we were there for that too. And awesome experience, and then come back. So that's been a
Woo,
trip. Tua. That was the trip.
man.
But
So
awesome.
I just want to kind of I think this is a good opportunity, Masi, before we get to the scheduled program here is one of the things that I think that the Polynesianized podcast brings is a unique perspective, right? So you've gone on this trip, you visited throughout the United States, you live in New Zealand, you're in Australia, you lived in Samoa for a couple years, you grew up in Tonga, you visited Hawaii, Tahiti, Fiji, any other
Mm,
islands outside of that, Mussy, that you visited?
let me think here. No, nope. Those are the ones that have been there so far.
Okay. And myself visited many of those same islands, the Samoas, both the Samoas, Fiji, New Zealand,
Correct.
Australia. In the airport, I haven't gone out.
Mm,
Um, grew up in Tonga. I've been probably to almost every state, besides
that's
North and South Dakota and
right. Mm-hmm.
Alaska. Been throughout Europe. Been to France,
Mm,
to the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, been to Brussels, been to France. I just came back from China. So
woo, that's right. That's right.
I think we bring a pretty broad perspective of what it means
Mm,
to see the world through Polynesian eyes. And I only bring that up because some listeners, some of the podcasts in the Polynesian realm, sometimes when they react to our content, they just automatically assume, maybe because of our accent, we draw a little bit more to the American accent. They just assume that's like, oh, these plastic Tongans, or
mm,
sometimes we're taught, oh, these Usos, these Samoans in America, they have no idea what they're talking about, right?
mm,
Like they don't know anything about the islands or the world, or that, sometimes we're accused of being uneducated. Mr.
that is
Aotearoa has
funny.
a
It's
degree.
funny.
I have a degree. And it's just, I just wanted to, I thought after when you were explaining your trip, I was like, we we may look like we're just, fobs right off the boat, or we may sound like just Americans who don't know anything besides America. Well, we do know America, and we know a little bit more. So
Yeah.
just thought we'd throw that out there for some of those
Yeah.
who don't know a lot about our background and context, Mr. Aotearoa. So
Yeah. No, no,
any
and
thoughts on that?
yeah, no, and I think, and probably a lot of the people who do kind of criticize, or like, who at least don't bring valid points, we rather prefer like valid critiquing and stuff. But the ones who kind of have a just a quick, uh like, just say a quick temper whenever they react, because I think we got quite a few, to those, I think those are the ones who've never been around anywhere. Right, that's what I think, because some people just don't like some of the perspectives, but like I said, we just give our raw opinions and perspectives, and like it or not, but we we develop them from a lot of our experience that we have from around the world. And like I said, this is not just a American, or just even a a Polynesian thing, but we've kind of picked out maybe stuff from our experience from around the world and different cultures and and customs, and we kind of just throw them out there and take what's good and maybe what's working and maybe what we should focus more, instead of some other stuff that maybe is not so good. Maybe some people
Yeah.
don't like that.
Yeah, and we just want to throw out some ideas. If you wanna challenge the ideas, awesome.
Yes,
That's what
that's
we
what we
want.
want. That's what
Yes,
we want.
you
Yeah.
know. So pretty cool. Awesome. Well, I've been excited for this first live episode since our travels, Mr. Aotearoa,
Yeah.
because this is actually a book that was recommended to us by one of our Samoan brothers who
Okay.
watches the show. And he had reached out to us. Um, and actually, interesting. I think our next couple guests that we have scheduled are brothers from Haamoa. So we're
Mm,
excited to kind of talk to these brothers as well in our next couple episodes. But
mm.
it was a recommendation for us to look at this book and to see what we can learn about the relationship of Haamoa and Tonga through first contact. So this book, and I'll share the book so that
Okay.
any listeners or viewers who want to get it, you can download the PDF version of this or have access to it online. Um, So right here, it's called First Contacts in Polynesia, the Samoan Case, 1722 through 1848, and it's
Wow.
Western misunderstandings about sexuality and divinity. Now, we
Mm,
didn't we didn't go into this book necessarily for those titles. What we did was we asked our research assistant, Mr. Grok,
Mr. Grok.
to Mr. Grok. So we had our research assistants, our executive producer on the Polynesian Eyes podcast, to run through the book and identify situations where Tonga is spoken of in the book, and to give the paragraph before and the paragraph after that
Okay.
Tonga is mentioned. And so we're going to go through some of those and just kind of talk about it and see what we can learn about what the relationship of Tonga and Samoa was through what the Europeans' first contacts with Samoa was and what they documented in those situations. Real quick, Mr. Aotearoa, there's a question that just popped up that I think is an important question to answer. And this is
Ooh.
from Finyanganofo 488. Says Polynesian Eyes is homage to the book that Tevita Fale wrote? Question mark. So want to go ahead, Masi, and
Yeah.
appreciate Finyanganofo for that question. If you want to kind of give an answer to that, Mr. Aotearoa.
Yes, before I answer, I just want to say that we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X, I believe, and Patreon tour. So I
Correct.
just wanted to mention that, and also shout out to the USO tour when you were saying that for bringing that recommendation of this book where we're about to explore. That's pretty awesome. Finianofo 488. Yes. Well, I believe you can correct me, Tua. Polynesian Eyes foundation was created, and then the book was created on top of that as a what as a non-government organization, uh,
Non-profit.
non-profit organization, and then the book was released. David Tafale's book was released. Is that
Correct.
correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a sense, Finyang Anofo, yes, it is tied to the book, but as Mr. Aotearoa said, Tevita Fale, after his first meeting with King Tupo the Fourth, and a discussion on what Tevita Fale could offer Tonga through the work that he was planning to do. Right after that meeting with Tupo the Fourth, Tevita Fale registered the Polynesian Eyes Foundation in the
Yes.
Kingdom of Tonga and later wrote the book and published it out as based off of the Polynesian Eyes Foundation. So
Mm.
hopefully that answers your question, Finyang Anofo. So appreciate that question. Any questions on the book itself, Masi? But just wanted to kind of show the book. So as readers here can see, you can just go search First Contact in Polynesia, the Samoan case. You can download if you want to read the whole book, go ahead. But that's kind of just a reference so people understand what we're going to walk through.
No, just excited. I'm just grateful that we have viewers who care about history and care about discovering more and learning new things about our Polynesian history, and providing this recommendation because, like you said, we were willing to talk about anything and everything regarding
Yes.
Polynesia. So, no, I'm just grateful for that viewer for recommending this book.
All right. Well, let's dive right into it. Um, let me see if I can minimize. I want to minimize this panel, but I don't know if I can. I know they're enter full screen. There we go. All right.
Okay.
So as we can see here, first contact Samoa case. As you see here, this is the Grok. This is the prompt that we gave
Hmm.
Grok to revisit, scan through the book, identify the page, identify the paragraph before and after where Tonga is mentioned amongst there. So I'll read the first one, Mr. Aotearoa,
Go
and
for it.
as I'm reading it, if you want to give feedback or any thoughts, we can go from there. Right?
Okay. Are we gonna go in
Okay.
order, kind of thing? Two, one, and then
Yeah.
two. Go through. Okay.
So
Awesome.
I'll read three. So they go in threes. We're gonna go in threes,
Okay.
and then you can read the next one.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. So it says the beads, which were of blue glass, were already known to the Samoans in 1787, as Laperouse noted, and they were still in great demand in 1824 as Kotzebue observed. The question is, where did the Samoans get them from? Laperouse himself in 1787 had noticed that the Samoans had no idea of their European origin, and he concluded that they must have come from Tonga, where Tongans had received them from the Dutch, who had visited the region in 1616 and 1643. This is the first hypothesis, and it is the one I shall follow here. He
Mm.
therefore assumes that the beads were of European origin and that the Samoans had obtained them from the Tongans, who themselves received them from the Dutch expeditions of 1616 and 1643. We shall see several confirmations of this later on. So this is, I think, page, I may have deleted the page. I believe this is from page 19. So the very
Yeah.
beginning of the book. Then it says this hypothesis is supported by the account of early European explorers such as Tasman, who noted the presence of similar beads amongst the Tongans during their visits. The exchange of such items, a long standing interaction between Samoa and Tonga, facilitated by maritime trade and alliances, which predates the arrival of Europeans on Samoan shores. So, what what I understand from this
Mm.
is when these first contacts come to Ha'amoa, number one, the first contacts in Ha'amoa are in the mid to late 1700s, according
Hmm.
to what this is saying. The first contact with Europeans in Tonga is almost 100 years earlier.
Yeah.
And so that's why the Europeans, when they got to Ha'amoa, they were shocked to see the beads, the
From
glass
glass.
beads.
Yeah.
Yes. And there was like,
Mm.
how did these people get glass beads? And it's soon he's saying here that what it is that the Samoans had gotten it from the Tongans.
With their
And that,
encounters with the Dutch. Huh?
yes, and that it's because of that relationship and trade and interaction through marriages, right? Through trade
Hmm.
and so forth, that it arrives in Tonga. So there's a couple things that is confirmed here. Even from the 1700s, therefore, hundreds of years after quote unquote Tonga was kicked out of Samoa,
Mm.
the Tongans were still heavily engaged in
Mm.
Ha'amoa, and that
Mm.
there was very strong interactions with that, right?
Mm.
This also sounds and sounds very similar to when we looked at that one study that looked at the oral history,
Hmm.
right? Where you would hear about Fiji in Ha'amoa, but
Yeah.
when they studied the patterns or how they talked about Fiji, they're like, it doesn't seem like they talking about Fiji like they have direct information or contact with Fiji. Then the
Pick-
hypothesis that came out
Yeah.
was they were getting all that information from the Tongans who were actively in Fiji. And actually, the biggest connection between Samoa and Fiji was through Tonga,
Mm.
just like the beads here. So that's kind of like what I'm kind of understanding from this initial interaction, that 100 years later, when the Europeans are making first contact with Ha'amoa, they're already seeing this relationship with Tonga very early on. So anything you want to add there, Mr. Aotearoa?
No, nothing that really stands out. Just I think it's just pretty amazing with the heavy, just like what you said, and we've kind of mentioned it before too. The secret weapon seems like, I think somebody had, I think the all of Polynesia had knowledge of navigating the ocean, but it seems like Tonga was keeping the full knowledge of navigation to themselves because it was like a power over some of the islands regarding exact pointness and maybe easy navigating the ocean. Because, like I said, it's Tonga's the only one to be navigating the ocean to the late 1800s. And looks like
Mm-hmm.
this was like, and like what you said, you brought up the example with Fiji and Samoa, but looks like a lot of their communication was coming through the through Tonga, going between Fiji to Tonga, Tonga to Samoa, Samoa to Tonga, Tonga to Fiji. Kind of going back and forth like that. So, um, very interesting. It could have been that knowledge that Tonga would give maybe 40% to somebody else regarding the navigating, unless you were somebody of high significance, and then maybe had the knowledge of navigating the whole entire Polynesia empire, the Polynesian empire. But it seems like Tonga kept a lot of the true knowledge, or maybe the full knowledge of navigating to themselves as a power grab, and to make sure to maintain power of easy transportation through the Polynesian Empire. I don't know, just throwing it out there because
No,
that's what it
hundred
seems like
percent,
to be a thing here.
100%. And I want to kind of leverage one of our viewers, Mel, who is from Tokelau. She
Yeah.
had shared her research, and we did an episode on the research that Mel did, and he shares that Tokelau seemed to be like a hub for Tuvalu, the Solomon Island areas, and even a little bit
Mm,
into Tahiti, and that
mm,
they had knowledge of like the neighboring corners like that,
ah,
but they didn't necessarily have the knowledge of going beyond that. Like they had their little, oh, it's almost like you could divide it into like little states or
mm,
provinces.
mm,
You could have Haamoa as like a province, those group of islands, all the islands
mm,
in Western Samoa and American Samoa and Manua.
mm,
They seem to know how to travel in between those islands, but we don't see a lot of evidence that they traveled extensively outside
mm,
of those islands consistently. So it is kind of interesting to see that there are regional knowledge, but like you said, a global knowledge of how to travel throughout the Polynesian Empire on a consistent basis.
mm,
It's hard to argue against that the Tongans were the ones that were doing this on a regular basis, and the Europeans are the ones that document that at least in the 1800s and
mm,
1600s.
mm.
Couple comments here. Must just want to bring up as our
Ooh,
regulars. Mr. Waterbear says Malo
yes.
Tocos.
Mr. PR Malo Water Bears.
Yes, the
Good
official
to have you.
PR
It's been a
rep.
minute.
Been a
Yes,
minute.
been a minute. Good to have you, Togowa.
Also, Navutoka says Malo Moingawe.
Hey,
Malo
Malo,
Abito
Navtok.
Navutoka. Here's a question, Mr. Aotearoa. Has me thinking that Tuitonga suppressed navigation knowledge on purpose? Question mark.
That's what I was kind of thinking, Finang Anofo. That's what I was kind of mentioning to Tua, because I didn't think about this until earlier, until the more we've kind of start talking about this. But with the evidence of the communication between Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga, it seems like they were getting their information from Tonga on how Ha'amoa was from the Fijian side, and how Fiji was, how Fiji is to the Ha'amoa. So it seems like Tonga was just the masters, and then the other islands who had that navigation, kind of like what you mentioned, it was a regional navigating knowledge they had. But it seems that's what it seems like, Finianganofo, from just me just looking at present on what we have. It seems like the navigation Tonga would kind of hold that knowledge as, let's just say, as as a political advantage, and also as maybe a a power move on other islands, just in case if they needed to uh you know suppress certain village islands, or so whatever reason. But it seems like that's the case. I don't know. That's my thoughts, Tua.
Yeah, and that is really, if we take that position, Mr. Aotearoa, now this is why Tonga, even though the island itself may be small, but they're able to mobilize resources from
Yeah.
wherever. And like you said, if one corner of the Polynesian nation was kind of getting out of control or whatever,
Mm,
if needed, you could mobilize resources from other places. And if you're the only one who knows where to move those resources and how to
mm,
get there and back, that is a very powerful tool to maintain influence and power throughout the Polynesian nation.
Yes. Well, and another thing that came up, and I feel like the knowledge of this navigating could have come from the Tangaloa era of the Toka Tufa, being the same practice when it was passed on to the Tuitonga. That when the Toka Tufa, meaning that when you had certain islands and the Eiki came from Tongatapu and you took them to certain islands, they were all obviously traveling with the the Tuitonga's followers to go to settle another island, and these are probably generation of knowledge, just navigating and having Aikis everywhere in the Polynesian Empire. So I think this is just probably years and years of knowledge that they've kind of gathered on their own and reporting back to Tangaloa and then over time to the Tuitonga. I don't know. That's just me kind of thinking out loud. I think with that
No,
practice.
100%, 100%. So, just for a note, Masi, when you read this, just note that these parts are just saying this is the paragraph before, this is the
Proceed.
paragraph that contains it, and this is the paragraph after. So just skip
All right.
those when you read. Can you read it clearly, or do I need to zoom in more?
No, I can see it. I can see it good.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Excerpt 2. The term papalangi, used by Samoans to refer to Europeans, indicates a pre existing awareness of outsiders, likely derived from interactions with neighboring Polynesian groups. This awareness suggests that stories and objects from European encounters elsewhere in the region had reached Samoa before direct contact, shaping their initial perceptions and expectations during first encounters. The people from whom they could have heard stories about the Papalangi are the nearby Tongan islanders. It is not surprising that an event in Tonga would have been recounted all around the region. The pioneer missionary John Williams noted in 1830 the Samoan use of the word papalangi, but we know that the expression had been in circulation in Western Polynesia since at least the time of Tasman's passage through Tongan waters in 1643, as the Tongans repeated it to Captain Cook when the British arrived. We know from various legends describing wars and marriages that the relations between East Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa had been constant for a very long time. In 1777, a member of Cook's third voyage noted while in Tonga the nature of the Tongan relationship with Samoa. Samoans were established in Tonga and vice versa. These interactions highlight the interconnectedness of Western Polynesian societies with frequent exchanges of goods, people, and information. Such connections facilitated the spread of knowledge about Europeans even before direct contact, shaping Samoan perceptions and responses during later encounters. What's your thoughts there, Tua?
Yeah. So once again, what we're seeing here is a term that is documented that was tagged when the Europeans first arrived in Tonga in the 1600s.
Mm,
So we can say that from what it looks like from here, the term Pa'alangi or Pa'alangi comes from
from Tonga.
Tonga. And that when
Mm,
the Europeans arrive into or make first contact with Ha'amoa, the Ha'amoa already had that term and were using it
mm,
because they heard stories. The idea here is the Ha'amoa brothers and sisters heard it from the Tongans that there are these people
mm,
that we call Palangis or Papalangis that are
mm,
foreigners, and they have those stories and those familiarities with them, so that when the Western contact comes to Ha'amoa, they were already familiar with them and the term that the Tongans coined for the Palangis,
foreigners. Yes. Mm,
right?
mm,
And the other interesting thing here for me is this sentence right here. The
mhm,
Samoans were established in Tonga and vice versa. We
Mm-hmm.
were one nation. We were one people. The
Correct.
Tongans were in Samoa, the Samoans were in Tonga, and we know that with the Tu'ikanuku, he imports thousands of Ha'amoa people, and the
Zero Hipo.
Europeans notice, hey,
Mm,
there's Tongans here in Ha'amoa. That though
mm,
they're interacted and they're moving people around, we were united as a nation. That to me is pretty strong evidence of it. That this
mm.
idea of an independent and separate Ha'amoa from Tuna and Fata that doesn't
Didn't
seem to
exist.
really exist
Yeah.
in
It
this
was a
time.
scuffle, and that's why
It was
we termed it
yes,
a scuffle. Yeah.
yes. So that's my initial thoughts, Mr. Aotearoa. That's kind of my take on what I kind of expressed there.
Yes, and maybe do you know the? I think you can explain it better, Tua, but with the term papalangi, because I think there's couple definitions. People
Yes.
thinking that the that the Polynesian term was coined as the the ships, the European ships, as like descending from the sky or like bursting
Mm.
from the sky. What's kind of the your thoughts with the, because I don't know if other people are familiar with the papalangi term of what it actually means.
Yes, I think it actually may cover that a little bit later on.
Okay. Okay.
So there seems to be two definitions that were
Mm,
tied to the term. One was, oh yeah, like your ships or people coming in from the sky that touch the sky. That's
correct.
one idea. That's the more mythical
Mm,
idea. Remember when we talked about when Ha'amoa would hear stories about Fiji, they would almost like make it mythical, like it's a land of beasts and
eh, eh,
weird things, right?
eh.
It seems that the Tongans, and this is my hypothesis,
Mm-hmm,
for those who heard it from the Tongans about the Palangis, they took a definition that was more mythical about these people, like, oh, from the sky, and their boats, big boats, touch the skies or whatever. And that's why they're called Papalangi.
papalang. Mm,
What seems to be the Tongan original definition was the Tongans, because going back to your idea that you mentioned earlier, the Tongans had quote unquote international capabilities of
mm,
travel, and they knew the domain by which the Polynesian nation was in.
mm,
And Papalangi was the term of saying, beyond the horizon of our domain, these people must come from beyond that. Where you, it's like looking into the horizon where the ocean touches the sky. And
mm,
Papa means to kind of pop or to go beyond that.
mm,
And so
mm,
the original Tongan term for Papalangi was the people from beyond the domain, beyond into the skies of beyond of where the Tongan navigational capabilities were
mm.
common to. And so that seems to be the origin of the name Papalangi. But obviously, when you go and you tell that story to Ha'amoa or Fiji or Tokelau or anywhere else, they're going to be like, secondhand information,
Yeah.
and they can take a second definition added to it. Very much like, and I'm not trying to be rude, Ha'amoa, clan of Moa, morphs over generations, turns into Samoa, and then a second definition is added, sacred center.
Yeah.
And therefore people say, oh, Samoa means Sa means sacred, and Moa means like center or chicken or whatever. Oh,
Mm,
Ha'amoa was the center of the empire because of the
mm,
name. That
mm,
seems to be a much later interpretation. The original interpretation was Ha'amoa, just
mm,
like Ha'atakalaua, just like
mm,
Ha'apai, just
mhm,
like Ha'ahavea, right?
mhm,
But
mhm.
the further you get away from the center, the definition changes from what it originally was. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
Nope.
my take on
Nope.
that.
That's the explanation that I've heard too with the term papalangi, which I haven't heard it from anyone else other than just our own discussion within our kind of family group. So no, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect there.
Yeah, and I think it will touch into that a little bit more later on. But anyways, Perfect. We'll come back.
Okay.
Excerpt 3 from page 20. These long-standing connections facilitated the transmission of cultural and material exchanges, including knowledge of European goods and behaviors. Such
Mm,
interactions likely influenced Samoan perceptions and responses during their first encounter with Europeans, shaping their expectations and interactions. We shall see that in 1824, Kotzebue noted how Samoans spoke Tongan to him.
mm-hmm.
That in 1831, Lafond de Lercy himself saw the big canoes of the Tongans coming regularly to Samoa. This evidence underscores the active maritime exchange between Tonga and Samoa, reinforcing the notion that cultural and material influences, including knowledge of Europeans, were shared extensively across the region, contributing to a shared Polynesian identity and
Mm.
interconnected history. Any
Yes,
thoughts
sir.
there, Mr. Aotearoa?
Big, lot of talking points here. To first, looks like there is a in what it says here in number two, 1824. Kotzebue noted how someone spoke Tongan to him, and this is in 1824. So obviously, there seems to be a change, or maybe a certain dialect that maybe Ha'amoa spoke with, but they spoke Tongan because obviously Tongan seems to be the maybe the language that was spoken maybe throughout Polynesia, maybe because of the Inasi and the Polo Polo that was happening in Tongatapu, and it made it, and I've always, it just makes me gonna question that. I think when you broke it down to with how the Polynesian language kind of changed, while the
Mhm.
Tongan one had the less changing out of the rest. So obviously there seems to be a lot of, because when did the Europeans and colonizers? This is 1824. Is it the 1860s? I believe.
1860s through 90s is when a lot of the colonization happens. And
Right. So
some of the early civil wars in Ha'amoa are just in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
correct. Well, and then this is the thing, right? This is already in the the let's just say the less influenced time of the Tuitonga. So obviously
Yes.
the Tuitonga is influence is not as strong how it used to be, and obviously when the influence of the Tuitonga is lessened, therefore many of the villages throughout the Polynesian nation is developing maybe certain, let's just say, nuances in their language, and maybe customs and stuff are also rapidly changing. So but obviously when that's changing, they know that this is the Tuitonga language, or just say the Tongan language. That's what I'm just thinking to speaking out
Yes.
loud. So I don't know if
I
you had
want to I
anything
want to
to
add something to that.
uh,
So, when I traveled through China, right?
uh,
I went to Guangzhou and traveled throughout that area in southern China. Went to Jiangmen, which is another town just kind of south, about an hour and a half, 2 out of Guangzhou. Then I flew to Shanghai. Went
mhm.
to I went to an ancient town in China that was almost 1,000 years old. It's like this little version of Venice. It's a water town.
Oh,
There's boats that goes through.
uh.
So this
And
town's over a
houses on
thousand.
top of
The
and the
water,
water just
yes. So this is the interesting thing, Masi, and this is where I'm trying to draw a parallel here. So in China,
mm,
a lot of these areas, there's over 50 dialects of languages in
mm,
China, 50
mhm,
plus. But the official language throughout the nation is Mandarin.
mhm,
And so as I was visiting and talking with some of these people, and I was like, oh, do people still speak these ancient dialects? And they say, yeah. The children in these smaller towns, and for them, a small town is 6 million, 5 million people.
yeah,
All right. They'd say the children and the parents of the kids, when they're at home, they speak the dialect of their people and amongst
mm,
themselves. But when
mm,
they go to school And when they communicate officially in the government, it's in Mandarin.
Mm.
That is the unifying language. This is we're probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but this is an idea.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of our regions in the Polynesian nation, they have their own dialects or slight deviations
Mm.
from the language, but the unifying language that all the ruling class and ruling
Yeah.
people have with
Mm.
each other is Tongan. When the
Tongan.
Tuitonga would come and visit, you
Mm-hmm.
speak Tongan. And that could be the reason. There could be two reasons why they're speaking Tongan to him. Number one, that's the language that you speak with foreigners that are
Yeah.
not from where you are. The second
Mm.
one is they heard of the Europeans from the Tongans
Yeah.
and they're associating Papalangis with Tongan, and maybe that's why they're speaking Tongan. That's the other
Mm.
idea. But just saying that there is room to say that if you want to say it, the official language in the Polynesian nation through the
Yeah.
ruling classes was Tongan, but they all had their own dialects or slight deviations from that. And that could explain, here's another interesting thing that just came to my mind that could explain why there's a quote unquote Austronesian language that's prevalent throughout the Pacific, but that may not be the quote unquote language of the official Tongan rule or the Tuitonga and the Tangaloa and the Maui clan. Because I
Yeah.
am open to the idea that there were people in some of these islands and they spoke a different language, but a unique group comes in with technology, religion, governance,
Mm.
and navigation capabilities that spreads from Tonga and creates a quote unquote nation out of that. Anyways, throw that out there. I
Mm.
know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, this should be the Tongue and Eyes podcast," blah blah blah. But that's a an idea I want to throw out
Y-
there.
Yeah. No. No. And that's what we want. That's what we want. No. Awesome. And some of the things I do want to say to you know, we're already familiar with the material influence. I think we did that other live digital kava session about a lot of materials from Ha'amoa, especially the axe. Is it the axe stones that were
Hmm.
found all over Tongatapu? That was very prevalent during that time of just trading, and it suggests that this is accurate and true. Some of the stories, like there, and I think it's in three, reinforcing the notion that cultural and material influences that was passed between the two. And the cultural, of course, there's many stories we've kind of shared, and also in the oral histories, and even now, with the marriages and certain names, with the cultural, the ma'ulu'ulu, we've changed the name and just make it um, more adaptable because it sounds more appropriate, and because maybe other islands um, of the Polynesian Empire were using that, and we've kind of used that name because it was the same thing. So those are the cultural influences throughout Polynesia, that it was especially heavy between the islands of the Tongatapu groups and the Ha'amoa group. So I don't know. That's my thoughts there. It does. I'm not surprised when it does say. I think in point two, seeing the big canoes from Tonga coming regularly to Ha'amoa, that was a very common thing, because I do believe the closest ally to Tonga out of all of Polynesia is Ha'amoa, and then after Ha'amoa is probably Fiji, in my opinion there.
Hmm.
And that's why I think when the empire did shrunk, Tonga was able to hold Ha'amoa and Fiji probably the closest before it came to what we are now, breaking it down before with the whole colonization and stuff. That's just my thoughts out there out loud to
Yes,
if you had anything
this
else.
you know what stuck out to me when I read that part where it
Mm,
says La Fond de Larcy himself. I
mm-hmm,
find it interesting that he says the big canoes of the Tongans. You could almost say he's associating there's a difference between the canoes that we see all the time in Ha'amoa
mm,
and the big canoes of the Tongans, because we make the argument like the Tongans probably had the largest, not just quantity of the fleet, but the size of the fleet, individual uh, Garia itself were massive to carry stones that were like 50 tons, 80
Yeah.
tons, hundreds of miles. And the other thing that also stuck out to me, remember, Mussy, you made the comment, I believe, on one of our last our live Gava sessions where they were talking about the where the term Navigator Island came from. And either you
Yes.
or me, but I think it was you. You were like, "Oh, they called Manua whatever Navigator Island because they saw the massive canoes
News.
over there, and they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, these are the navigators." And either you, I think it was you, said,
Eh.
"For all we know, that could have been the Tongan
Mm.
Karias
Mm.
in Haamoa that they see as they're going by." And to me, this kind of it strengthens that potential idea that the large canoes were associated with the Tongans
Yeah.
because that's where, like you were saying, the center of the knowledge for long not navigation, long
Yeah.
distance navigation is much. The idea seems to be stronger that the Tongans were doing this, much more common, fully
Mm.
documented by the 1800s, but this
Yeah.
seems to be more a feature of knowledge that was held in Tonga, which is why the Ha'amonga is in Tonga, which is why the
Mm-hmm.
Langis are in Tonga.
Mm-hmm.
But that was something that kind of stuck out to me on that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I think we can move to excerpt 4, or is it 3?
Okay. Yeah, four. We just finished three up there.
All right. All right. This close relationship between Tonga and Samoa is further evidenced by the fact that in the early 19th century, Samoans and Tongans often spoke each other's languages, and there were frequent exchanges of goods, people, and ideas between the two groups. Between 1840 and 1842, the beachcomber John Jackson, who stayed at Tau and later at various Fijian islands, noted how frequent were the visits and the war alliances between Fijians, Tongans, Samoans, and Uveans. Except 3, these alliances and visits highlight the fluid political and social landscape of Western Polynesia, where inter island relationships were crucial for warfare, trade, and cultural exchange, influencing the way Samoans interacted with Europeans as they integrated into these networks. Any thoughts, Tua?
Yes. So the first thing that sticks out to me is this guy lived on Tau Island, so that's Manua,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What I always hear from our brothers and sisters in Haamoa is the Tongans never could go and do anything in Manua. Manua was so sacred that
Mm.
the Tui Tonga and Tongans would never go there. Yet we have this John Jackson who stayed on Tau Island and went to Fiji, and he says the Tongans were in Tau and they were in Fiji, and the Samoans were moving about as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me challenges the idea that Tongans never went to Manua and that were never engaged in
Mm.
in political or social interactions there. That's one thing that sticks out. Um, the other thing is that if it was as late as 1840 and 1842,
Mm-hmm.
and that these interactions were so common,
And
how
strong.
come and
Mm.
strong? My question is, Masi, how come we don't have documentation of Samoans being in Fiji fighting battles or Uveans being in Fiji fighting battles? This is around the time of um Tatu Ilaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what
Mm-hmm.
was it? What was Maafu,
Mafu.
right?
Yeah. With his
So
campaign. Eh.
yes. So why? My question is, why don't we hear of documentation of Samoans being in Fiji or in Uvea invading and battling? I'm trying to understand what he's saying here.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I can think of is yes, there were Fijians and Tongans moving about, but who was doing the moving? Who
Yeah.
was the leader and leading moving Uveans and Samoans inner within these areas? It doesn't seem like, oh, there was a Samoan fleet and a Samoan based chief who came to Fiji and invaded. What seems to be more feasible is Tongans went to Samoa, picked up Samoan warriors because they're speaking the same language, they're the same people, they
Yeah.
have relation, and taking them and going to Uvea or going to Fiji. But the idea still stands that what was the interconnection between the islands?
Mm-hmm.
Tonga. Tonga was the infrastructure or the facilitator of moving of the peoples. That's what I kind of took out of this, um, because if we're looking that this stuff was happening in the mid 1800s, we would have had written history of this Samoan chief
Yeah.
or this Uvean chief was in Fiji and was doing these raids. We don't have that. The only ones we have are Ma'afu and the local Fijian chiefs warring with each other. But Ma'afu probably had relatives in Ha'amoa, maybe, and Uvea, and he would
Mm.
bring those resources to Fiji and to help him with his campaign in Fiji. I don't know.
Mm.
That's one of the things that stuck out to me
No, awesome. And I think we did also discuss that. I think it was Ma'afu's younger brother that also went and stayed with his relatives
in
in
Ha'amoa.
Upolu.
Yeah,
Yes, in Ha'amoa.
and didn't
So
come back until Queen Salote brought him back when he was very old.
very old, very old. And you're right, though. That's a good point because 1840s, right? This is ready. This is, I think, this is a lot of throughout the Polynesian empires. We're having at least some palangis already in this time that people have already encountered, right? And
Yeah.
they would have recorded some, at least some navigation knowledge of other people kind of going back and forth. But it seems like it was only the Tongans that was like what we mentioned, that was throughout the 1800s was still traveling like it was no brainer, like with ease throughout the Pacific. So very interesting. Very interesting. Just further suggests, just further suggests that the knowledge of navigation when you only have a regional capability to travel, that tends to be lost maybe with much more encounters with the Papalangis, and then the Tongans were, because it was very vast, were able to maintain it, and it lasted longer throughout the
Hmm.
years. So yeah.
10-4. Anything else, or we go to the next one?
Next one.
Okay. The next one here, excerpt 5 on page 26. The Samoans were keen to obtain iron tools and cloth from Europeans. Recognizing their utility and value, iron was particularly prized for its durability in tools and weapons, while cloth was seen as a luxury item for clothing and ceremonial uses, contrasting with traditional materials like tapa. But the question of cloth was different. The Samoans knew for certain about the value of European cloth from what they saw in
Go
Tonga
on.
and
Mm,
from the stories told by the Tongans and from their own dealings with the Dutch over
mm,
100 years before, right?
mm-hmm.
This prior knowledge of European cloth through Tongan connections explains why Samoans' eager demand for it during early encounters, integrating it into their social and ceremonial practices, and highlighting the role of inter island trade in disseminating new materials and ideas.
Yes. Very interesting. And it made me think while you were reading that, Dua, this is all stories that our Ha'amor brothers and sisters are listening from the Tongans with their dealings and how they dealt with the Papalangis. And this is what they're being fed to from the Tongans. And this is their understanding when they come in contact with the Palangis with their materials, what they're gonna be expecting.
Very interesting, right? Very interesting ideas here. So I don't have anything else to add to that, Mr. Atora. Anything else?
Nope, nope. I'm good.
All right, because we got like 28 of these. We may only get through half of this because I think I want to for tonight's kava session. Unfortunately, because of work tomorrow, I want to keep it to no more than an hour and a half.
We'll
But
do a part one and a part two. Eh?
100%.
Okay. All right.
So, oh, right here, excerpt 6.
Excerpt 6. All right. The French expeditions' attempts to communicate with the Samoans were hampered by language barriers, leading to the use of Tahitian words learned from previous visits. This approach revealed similarities and differences in Polynesian languages, providing insights into regional connections. At first, La, Lapros says the language of the people met on those navigators islands seemed to have no similarity with our vocabularies from the Society and Friendly Islands, Tahiti and Tonga. However, upon closer interaction, some common words were identified, suggesting linguistic links across Polynesia. This discovery aided in basic communication and trade, though misunderstandings persisted due to cultural differences. Any thoughts there, Tua?
No, nothing crazy. Besides, there seems to be a relatedness in the language. And it at
Hmm.
first they thought there was no relation, but after they paid attention more, and maybe Tahitians had their own way of pronouncing words and
Yeah.
speaking, but they soon realized that yeah, no, there are similarities here and ties throughout the different Polynesian languages.
I do want to add, is this French expedition attempts to communicate, is this more in the 1840s time period or 1850s? Do you have any idea, Tua?
So the only thing I can answer for that, Mr. Aotearoa, is this could have been as early as the 1700s.
Okay.
So it says that these interactions that we're going through are from 1722 through 1848.
1848. Okay. 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 No, I'm just curious the time
Okay.
period there.
All right. Excerpt number 7, page 33. The discussion on the peopling of Polynesia involved theories of racial mixing and migration routes, with early anthropologists proposing connections between Asian and Pacific populations based on physical and cultural traits. I am convinced that the indigenous people of the Philippines, of Formosa, New Guinea, New Britain, New Hebrides, the Friendly Isles, and in the Southern Hemisphere, and of the Carolines, the Marianas, Sandwich Islands, in the northern hemisphere, are all the same race, and that they have been mixed with the Malays, Tartars, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Moors, and the Africans in proportion to their distance from the continents where these races inhabit. So he kind of takes that
Mm.
Southeast Asian, Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
down through Melanesia into Polynesia kind of thoughts
And
there.
and I'm thinking when he says the Africans, is he thinking like the Aboriginals from Australia, probably that's being mixed? I don't know. What are your thoughts when he said
That's a good question.
African
I'm assuming when you say African that you're talking about the
Africa
Madagascar, because I've
or
seen people
Madagascar?
talk about Madagascar and that
Mm,
being
good point.
right off of Africa, and I've seen that tie being made by some people.
Yeah, and I'm a believer when you're a mass navigator, and that's why I feel like that term papalangi was coined and used by the Tuitonga, especially with the Tongans, coined with that papalang because these are people that they haven't seen, right? I feel
Yeah.
like they've already seen the Chinese, the Asians, the Uri Uris. They've already seen these different kind of people, but the papalangi, out of their scope of navigating Central, North, South Americas through East Asia, all of that down to Australia, up to Africa. They're already been there. That's why I it's very interesting when they coined that, saying this is out of the scope where we've mastered the ocean. Yeah,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
And
Yeah,
and when and because why the Palangis are in Europe, Northern
yeah,
Europe,
yeah, and
right? They're not
yeah,
in Asia, they're not in Africa, they're not in the Americas. Those
Yeah.
are all areas that the Polynesians went to. And what's
Eh,
the one consistent thing? They're not Palangi. They're not
yeah.
white, blonde hair, blue eyed,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Mr. Aotearoa.
All right. Next one.
Okay. Is it your turn or
Sam,
my turn?
my turn.
Okay.
Samoans' reaction to French was curiosity and trade desire, especially for iron, contrasting with Tongans' fear in 1616 and Tahitians' initial hostility in 1767. Familiarity with European goods via Tonga explained confidence. In the Samoan case, because of the high value they placed on the beads traded by the Europeans and the stories of previous contacts with Papalangi, the, this first contact on land was not a completely new discovery for the Samoans, hence their demand for beads. Demand for beads, not in traditional systems, suggests integration into value systems via Tongan intermediaries sought after with iron shifting material culture.
Mm.
Hmm. All right, so this is the whole value of beads. Samoans have really value these because of their trading and seeing them from Tonga's early trading with the beads with the Europeans. That's pretty much what
Yes.
this part is saying.
What really sticks out to me is kind of like this kind of phrase right here, right? That the valuing of the beads and non-traditional things suggests integration into the value system via Tongan intermediaries,
Yeah.
sought after with iron shifting material culture. To me, what it says is this: who are the quote unquote influencers of culture in Haamoa? It's the Tongans who are bringing these new ideas, these new products, these new behaviors, and influencing the value system,
Mm,
right? Why what makes what makes the beads and the clothing valuable? Because that's what the Aikis have. And
yeah.
that's something unique and rare
And
that they
new.
have
Yes.
access to. And
Mm,
so when they see it, there's like, oh, there's that quick association is, oh, this is valuable stuff because only the Aikis have it. Those who
correct.
have ties to Tonga and have from family and social ties to Tonga, those are the ruling classes, and they are the ones who have that. So it increases the value of those things because
Mm,
if you have beads, what is the assumption of the beads? Status and
correct.
social influence. Like I don't know if you heard this story, Masi, about I think it was BMW when they first went into Singapore or
Mm.
Southeast Asia and they weren't able to sell cars. Have you heard the story behind that? Have you
No,
ever heard a similar
no.
story?
What's the
Okay.
story?
So I believe it was BMW, but it was one of the luxury brands. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get into Singapore and some of the other like Southeast
Markets.
Asian
Yeah.
markets. And they had their billboards up and they were like, luxury, the finest cars you can get. And they couldn't sell a car, right? And they thought
Mm,
they could just come and build their own path into being successful.
mm,
And so they hired a local firm, a consulting firm. And after the consulting firm went through all the stuff that they did, they only had one recommendation:
what?
put the price of the car on your billboards.
Hmm.
And you know what happened? Sales skyrocketed.
Mm,
And so
interesting.
the reason why it skyrocketed is because the vehicle now became a statement of class and of influence. Because when you just had the car and it's nice, well, nobody
Mm,
really cares it's a nice car.
yeah.
But when you see that it's a $600,000 car and everyone knows it's a $600,000 car, now when you're driving in that car, what does everybody think?
They
That's
associate
a
with class, status, what
that's
you
a
have,
six
wealth. Yeah.
yes, that's a $600,000 car. only the wealthy have that, and everybody knows that. That
Mm.
seems to be true. That's what I'm reading in between the lines here. What made the beads so valuable? It was associated with the Tongans
Status.
and the ruling class. So if I had beads, I could not be related to any of the Eikis. But if I
Mm.
have beads,
People are
what's
gonna
the
associate that.
assumption?
Eh. People are gonna
They as-
associate you with the Aikis.
exactly. So that's what I'm seeing the similarities here. What made the cloth so valuable? It's if only the poor people had the cloth, then the cloth's not valuable because it's not associated with status.
Mm.
But if the Akis have the cloth and the beads, now there's status and influence that comes with the beads and the cloth, if that makes sense.
Mm. Mm. No, awesome, awesome. That's a good example, Tor.
All right. Excerpt 9. Let's go to excerpt maybe 10 or 12 because we're
Okay.
already at an hour and 6 minutes here.
Okay.
It says here, excerpt 9 from page 52. Gift exchanges critical. Gift exchanges critical. Samoans offered pigs, yams, and received nails, knives, cloth, embedded in social cosmological frameworks to incorporate newcomers. Unlike the previous items, dogs were not used as gifts between Samoans. Again, as
Mm.
far as we can judge from the 19th century sources,
Mm-hmm.
but through the Tongans and from everything which had been passed on to them concerning the recent visits of the Papalangi who came from Tahiti and who used only Tahitian words, Leprose did so himself. The Samoans may have known that according to Tahitian custom, the gift of a dog was welcomed. We shall see another occurrence of this during the visit of Kutzby. Knowledge of Tahitian customs via Tongans indicates interconnectedness. Dog gift aligned with prestigious Tahitian practices, enhancing diplomatic relations.
Interesting. So they're saying the dog gift to the Europeans, or what was it trying to
Yes,
say there, Tua?
what it's
As
trying to
meat
say here
or something?
is the gift of dogs amongst Polynesians, especially in Samoa, Tonga, and in Western Polynesia, that was not a thing.
Ah.
What it was a thing was the Tahitians had learned that a gift of a dog was a positive thing with Europeans, with the Papalangi. So
Mm.
the fact that what they're trying to say is the the Europeans show up for the first time, and it's not the custom in Ha'amoa to gift a dog. It's
Yeah.
usually pigs and yams.
Yes. Ah.
How did they know that gifting of a dog would be perceived as positive interactions with the Europeans?
Mm.
And they say it's because they must have learned it from the Tahitians, but look at who they say disseminated that knowledge from the Tahitians.
The
It was
Tongans.
through the Tongans.
Mm.
Once again, the Tongans are the connecting
Mm-hmm.
factor between not only things that are happening in Tonga, but things that are happening in Tahiti. They're
Mm-hmm.
saying here knowledge of Tahitian customs via Tongans
Indicate.
indicates interconnectedness. So, what he's saying here, the Tongans are the ones who also teach them, hey, you know how we like to give each other pigs and yams? Well,
Mm-hmm.
apparently, with these Palangis, we were in Tahiti, and the Tahitians told us, or we saw, that giving a dog makes the Palangis happy. They see that as a positive thing.
Mm.
So, once again, the interconnected glue of Eastern Polynesia, Western Polynesia, it's the Tongans who are the carriers of this information, which comes back to the idea that you shared, Masi. Who's the only one that's able to travel to
Yeah.
every corner
Mm.
of the Polynesian? It's the Tongans. This is what I'm seeing in that. That's what I'm kind of taking from that, Masi.
Mm. No, also the other one that caught my attention was the point one. Samoans offered pigs, yams. Obviously, didn't say talo. Didn't say
That's fair.
fa'i, fa'i. So obviously, our Ha'amoa brothers and sisters was just like the Tongans. Yams seems to be the top crop that was offered
The royal
for
crop for
royal
foreigners.
crop for remember, and these were very highly valued iron, what they were seeking, the nails, knives, and also the cloth. So obviously they were giving their best, and the yam was the top starch in Polynesia, which and we're trying to say over time, right, that lost of value because maybe through colonization or whatever, it's changed. But I'm just saying, throughout history, see, even the Ha'amoas valued his yam being the top crop, just like in
Yeah,
the Tuatapu group.
yeah, and that's kind of going with I believe that 100%, Mr. Aotearoa, because w- the driver of making yams
Mm,
is to give a gift to someone who values yams, and
mm,
it's the Tuitonga who
correct.
values yams. When
Hmm.
you remove the Tuitonga, then the only thing that is more valued is what's more efficient and convenient for day-to-day life
Mm,
within just Ha'amoa. Then it shifts from yams to banana and taros.
yeah.
So that's an interesting thing, Masi. I think that's a fair point. That
Mm,
shows that the interconnectedness and what was valued and what was important seems to be a lot more influenced by Tongan. Kind of going
yeah.
back to the beads and the cloth, like they said
Mm,
earlier.
mm,
They said that the beads and the cloth were valuable because of Tongan influence into the value system into Ha'amoa, which kind of matches what you're saying. When the influence of the Tongans were much stronger, it was pigs and yams. Now you remove the Tongan influence, the yams become less important.
yeah. Yeah. No
That's
value.
a
So
good point.
you're not growing it. So what's the point of
Yeah,
holding that knowledge? It's more taro and the kape, which is like kaamu and bananas, right?
yeah. Interesting. No, that's a good point. All right,
Right.
excerpt 10. Maybe we'll go to like excerpt 12. So
Okay.
a couple more.
All right. During French visit, Europeans demonstrated firearms, firing shots to impress Samoans. Con- Much more probably, the Samoans were perfectly aware, again through their connections with the Tongans, of the firing powers of the Papalangi, and this demonstration was no surprise to them. The Dutch and the British had made many such demonstrations for the benefit of the Tongans. This prior awareness of firearms through Tongan connections reduced the impact of the demonstration, indicating that Samoans were already informed about European technology, influencing their strategic responses during encounters. Any thoughts there, Dua?
Yeah, I mean, once again, there's a theme, right? The theme is the vein of the flow of knowledge and information. Tonga is the facilitator of this knowledge. And that's why Ha'amoa were not as shocked or surprised by these things. They were already
With
like, oh, yeah,
their firearm.
we heard about it's more curiosity rather than awe
Yeah,
or surprise.
yeah.
So that's
No,
kind of the only thing that I have there, Mr. Atero.
yeah. No, no, and this is what a tuitong uh, alliance would mean. When you find something, you would let your alliance know, whether it be Ha'amoa, Fiji, or like Tahiti or somewhere. It's like, hey, expect this thing if you see it come your way of the
Heads
firearm.
up. Heads
Yes,
up. This
heads
is
up.
something that's
Yeah.
out there.
Mm, Maria, Maria. All right. Excerpt 11. The
Yes.
massacre. The massacre The massacre of 1787 was attributed to misunderstandings and cultural clashes, with European narratives often emphasizing Samoan aggression, but local perspectives suggest it was provoked by disrespectful actions. We should also take careful note of what a beachcomber from Tonga who came to Samoa in the late 1790s, told George Bass, the first visitor to arrive in Samoa after La Prosse. Bass was getting supplies for Botany Bay and came once, sometime in the period from 1802 to 1806. The beachcomber related an incident that was said to have taken place on La Prosse ships. A Samoan chief had several times offered a roast pig to one of the French officers, but as the latter was busy with his work, he became annoyed with the Samoan and struck him with his sword, causing him to bleed. In contemporary Samoa, to strike a chief offering a pig would indeed be an immediate declaration of war. This incident highlights the cultural insensitivity of the French officers, where a gesture of hospitality was met with violence, escalating tensions and contributing to the tragic events that followed. So, what? Any thoughts there?
Yeah. So the first interactions between Europeans and Tongans seem to be very friendly, right?
Yeah,
That the Tongan said, "Hey, look, there's these Palangis. We did exchanges with them. We gave them puaka, we gave them food,
correct.
and they gave us these cool beads. They gave us cloth. They even showed us some of their technology." So when the Europeans show up to Haamoa, they have an expectation of, oh, if we just take these goods to them, they will accept it and we can trade, right?
Mm,
But there's a misinterpretation there, and the French guy strikes the Samoan chief, causing him to. And I think it's important, this phrase right here. This will become important, I believe, later on
okay.
when we read that there's a. I think there's a reason why they specifically noted causing him to bleed,
Mm,
and it comes from the idea of Eiki and the
mm,
blood, and what makes an Eiki. Eiki is his blood, and to cause an Eiki to bleed is a very offensive thing, because
yeah,
that's what makes him
achy.
Eiki. That's what
Mm,
makes him royal or sacred. And so to cause a royal person to bleed and spill
yeah,
blood is a big no-no.
big
Um,
offensive.
big offensive
Attack.
thing. And but once again, I'm just seeing here that our Samoan brothers and sisters were told, hey, we were able to bring them some pigs, bring them some food, and in exchange, they gave us stuff. Like there seems to be an understanding of, hey, I give you a gift, so you're gonna give me a gift. But
Correct.
it led to the French being annoyed and striking him, which sounds to eventually lead to some massacres after that.
Mm, okay, I'm good with that.
All right. I'll read this one and then we'll close with 13.
Okay.
Um, Mr. Aotearoa. Excerpt 12 from page 63. Kramer's ethnography portrays Samoans as prone to thievery, drawing parallels with experiences in other Polynesian islands. Though this view is biased by European perspectives of the time, it is well known that Samoans are thieves, as well as enlarged upon further below under Jewish jurisprudence. Kramer is introducing his second volume of ethnography. According, one must not consider acts of violence among them impossible, such as Cook, the duff, and the Port au Prince on which mariners served suffered among the Tongans. These comparisons underscore the European perception of Polynesian societies as potentially dangerous, influencing subsequent interactions and policies in the region. Nothing crazy here for me, but
Yeah.
anything for you, Mr. Ataroa. This is just kind of like a, yeah, the Palangis were scared that there was going to be violence amongst the Polynesians.
Yeah. No, nothing too much. Um, it's so I guess some of these the point one to two, saying I guess some of the European interactions with the Ha'amoas. drawing that they were always kind of stealing from the Europeans in their ships,
That's
kind
their
of thing.
perception. They had shared that the perception of the Palangis were that the Samoans were always stealing things when they were on the ship. But then he also says, but this could be based off of bias. Um,
Okay,
but
okay,
we did read, what account was it that we were reading
yeah,
that said the same thing, that in Samoa and Tahiti theft was a big problem, but
but it
in Tonga they did not have that same
issue.
issue.
Yes,
Um,
that's
so
what I was kind of thinking. I was trying to
mhm,
like see if because that seemed to have the same correlation with our further study by I think it was Gronk too that brought up with the first interactions amongst all the islands, and it brought up
it was with
Hawaii, Tahiti,
it was Captain Cook's
Eo
descriptions of his visits to
is his
Tonga,
visit.
and he
That's correct. That's
noticed
correct.
that amongst the Tongans, he did not have to worry as much about theft. Like he said, oh, in Tahiti and in Hawaii and in Samoa, theft seemed to be a problem when people came on board.
Is that a suggestion of maybe the other islands people were a little bit more risk takers of maybe falling out of order from their Aikis compared to the Tongans? It's like it's a big no. You dress a certain way or you don't act a certain way, and dude, you get and then you get further that disobey
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
command. It's a big no. I don't know. I'm just kind of suggesting out there because
Yes,
I'm just right. It just seems to be a theme there that maybe
I
hasn't been
have
talked about too
I have a
much.
story that I think aligns with that, Masi. You
Yeah.
remember the story with William Mariner and Ulkalala after they kill the majority of the people on the ship? They beach the ship, and William Mariner has the gun, and
Yeah.
Ulkalala tells him to shoot the cook that's on
Yes.
the ship. And
Mm.
what was his offense?
He
He
was
was
acting.
taking something from, he was trying to take a nail
Oh.
from the ship,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And what I'm using that as the example is, that is the example of, why are you doing that? Why are you touching that? Like, you know your role. Your role is be the cook, right? Play
mm,
your Know your role and play your role. It seems like in the Tongan social and political structure,
mm,
everyone had very rigid roles and responsibilities, and you don't, it's a big taboo. Remember, um maybe, I don't know if you remember, but this came out of a discussion I was having on one of our lives on TikTok,
uh-huh.
and one of the viewers brought up a study on Akautau, the Povai. That's where I
Mm,
learned that Povai wasn't really the name, according to this study, of a war club. Povai was more a name for a certain type of war club, and that
mm,
it was more called Akautau is what they
mm.
named. I don't know. I don't know if it's right or wrong or what, but they
Interesting.
did.
Interesting.
But they
Yeah.
did mention this, Masi. Only the chiefs had these. And you know, one of the primary functions of having these sticks, extended sticks slash akautau,
Mm,
was to whack people who did not fall in line,
yeah. Yeah.
right? Like,
Mm.
if you deviated from protocol, you were at risk of the Eiki
Punishment.
smashing you,
Physical punishment. Yeah.
to
Mm,
remind you of, hey, know your role. So
mm.
it I think it's a fair observation to say the same thing,
Okay.
right? That in Tonga, when the Eiki or whatever's on the ship, you don't make a decision on your own. You
Mm.
don't just go and do your own thing. You stand there and you do what the leader says to do and what not to do. You
Uh,
follow the leader in that. And that maybe I think that's a fair observation, that that could be the reason.
yeah. I was just picking that up because I did remember us talking about Cook and his experience compared to all the other islands and his interactions, and then compared to Tonga. And then I'm just seeing, okay, this has some correlation and parallels here
To
with
that.
what we're kind of reading here, even though, if it's based on the European perspective of the time, but I just found that interesting.
Excellent. All right, Masi, this is the last one. We'll end on excerpt 13.
Right. Edwards' expedition encountered locals in Savaii engaging in
Oh
trade
no, it's
and
that 13. That's
oh,
14.
sorry, my bad. The expedition's departure from Samoa was marked by the separation of the tender, which continued its journey independently, navigating through the Pacific Islands. Meanwhile, the tender left Samoa for Tonga and then it too sailed westwards through the Fijian Islands before reaching the East Indies, where the whole expedition was reunited. This route allowed for additional observations and interactions with other island groups, contributing to the expedition's overall mapping and ethnographic records. Any
Ah, that's
record, any
pretty
thoughts
lame.
there?
That one's pretty lame. It's just generic. The ship
Generic.
split up and then they reunited in the East Indies. We're not going to end on that. That's weak. We're not going to end on that one. Read
Okay.
14, Mati. That one's
Okay.
that's a weak sauce one to end on.
All right. All right. This is excerpt 14, page 70. Edwards' expedition encountered locals in Savaii, engaging in trade and communications during which they met a Tongan individual who provided insights into regional relationships and past European visits. He also had contact with a Tongan named Finau. Edwards noted that this man was a relation uh, of the chief of that name of Tongatapu. Finau said he had seen Captain Cook and English ships at the Friendly Islands, and that the people of this island, Savaii, had never seen a ship before they saw the Pandora. Hamilton adds, here we learn the death of Finau, king of is it Anamoka? What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Anamoka, from one of his family of the same name, who had a finger cut off in mourning for him, a practice observed by many travelers among Tongans, as we shall see in Lafon's narrative. This encounter revealed the interconnectedness of Polynesian societies, with Tongans residing in Samoa and sharing knowledge of European contacts, influencing local perceptions. Tua, anything that caught your attention on this
Number
excerpt?
1, Tongans living in Samoa,
Correct. Correct.
right? I thought that this was a big no-no, right? Like there was a separate independent nation after Tunai Fata, and there's like a nation of Samoa arises from that, and Tonga are separate. The second thing is the Tongan guy says, "Oh yeah, I've seen you guys on ships before,
Yep.
and nobody here has seen you guys before."
Yep.
This is the first-hand testimony of what we were talking about earlier. The
Hmm.
ideas flowed from Tonga to Haamoa, and
What
this
to
Tongan
expect?
gentleman living there says, "Oh yeah, I met Captain Cook, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And so forth. And these people haven't really met you guys before, and so also shows that this person, Finau, who's in Tonga, is not a nobody. This
Yeah.
is someone of royal blood and of influence,
Yeah.
right? Of social status in Hamoa. So
Yeah.
that to me is just another. Once again, this pattern is almost undeniable now. We're getting to the point where, at what point do we say it's time to just accept the fact we are one nation, one people? We were never really separate nations or
Hmm.
separate uh, governments and people. And the only reason why we exist as separate nations today is because of colonization.
Colonization. Yeah. No, and I want to add on to the fact, like what you said, this reaffirms, it just strengthens the position of the the war in Haamoa with the Tuitonga. It was a little scuffle. It
Not a
was
war.
something that
Yeah.
it was something that the Tuitonga took, say, oh, like he took an interest that somebody fought back. That's what it seems like, because like what you said, and not only Finau, but Finau's children with Mariner's account, they all lived in, a lot of them lived and grew up in Ha'amoa, and looks like when they got to adulthood, came back to Tonga with the ceremony of Finau's son coming back, and they're having the Ha'amoa games, comparing to the Tonga games as
Less
their kind of
class, Musty. Be
yeah,
careful. Be careful what words you
they're
use.
less class or
You
whatever, but they're ex extracurricular activities. But like that was way after the war, so obviously Tonga had no problem going back to Ha'amoa and staying with their relatives. And this further strengthens the point that not all of Ha'amoa was like, it seems like certain regions in Ha'amoa, like it seems like parts of Upolu and parts of Sabai had strong ties to Finau. Some other parts had stronger ties to the Tuitonga, which were the Eiki class. Because that's what, that's, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to see. It just shows you with the whole how Ha'amoa is now with its chiefdom regions of maybe who they align with, and maybe had further ties just depending on the relationships. I don't know. I'm just speaking to that as my observations. But yeah, those are my thoughts there, Tua.
No, appreciate that. Really, I'm just gonna skim here. This is we're gonna end the reading here. We'll do a part two,
Yeah,
and so we ended on that. But as we can see, there's more than enough for another episode. Maybe our next live will finish off
yeah,
the other comments here. But you know, I'll kind of give my thoughts and closing thoughts, and then I'll hand it over for you, Mr. Aotearoa, to close
yes,
us
sir.
out. But you know, once we once you just get over the idea of whatever stories we've heard as of late, and we just open your mind up to the reality all of Polynesia looks like was one nation. The capital was in Tonga. The naval strength and prowess was in Tonga. All of a sudden, a lot of these accounts and a lot of our behaviors and why we're so interrelated, there seems to be a logic and something that makes sense to that.
Mm,
And I think this is an important conversation. I think I mentioned to you, Mr. Aotearoa, before we jumped online. This may, once we finish this discussion on this book, I think we've laid a more than sufficient case
mm,
of Tonga and Samoa had pretty much always been united. There has never been a full break off of our Ha'amoa brothers and sisters from Tonga until colonization. Even up to the 1840s,
yeah,
there was a
strong.
very strong tie. And once again, we're saying a very strong tie when Tonga is going through civil war and the Polynesian Empire is in severe decline. Now imagine going back 100, 200 years.
Yeah, 1500s or something. Yeah,
Right, right. Where it was like, oh, Savaii wasn't like, oh, another nation. It was, oh, Savaii is like a village.
yeah,
It's like when you're on your island and Savaii is a village. That's how our ancestors, in my mind, viewed the islands. They didn't view them as, oh, that's a separate country, that's a separate people. No, that's like a village. I have family that lives there. They have family that lives here. We were interconnected. We were one people. I'm a big believer in that. And once we get this alignment and we kind of address this for once and for all, then we'll turn our attention to other areas that need some love and attention from the Polynesian Eyes podcast to start bringing our brothers and sisters to the fold of a united people, people who have a strong history, strong culture that you know we can restore and enjoy some of those benefits like our ancestors did hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So those are my thoughts, Mr.
mm,
Aotearoa. I want to close us out.
yeah. Hey, thank you for everyone who have joined us. We enjoyed this live digital kava session here. Um, my closing thoughts: it just strengthens the point that we were a Polynesian nation headquartered in Tongatapu, mostly led by the Tuitonga family, you know. And yeah, love you guys all. We're excited to get back now to a routine. We'll leave you the two questions. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and be bold and curious. Ovatu, everyone. Until the next one.
Peace.
Peace.